Hello guys, this is your friend Dark Verse and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto abandoned Konoha and rose as the Neo Uzushiogakure Overlord with his Queens of Desire? Hinata times Haku times Dark Emperor Naruto, Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Neo Uzushiogakure, or Neo Uzu for short, is built on the ruins of old Uzushiogakure, village hidden in the swirling tides, located in Whirlpool Country. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze is the daimyo of Whirlpool, and third Toad Sage. Nicknamed the Land of Exiles, Neo Uzu is home to several shinobi clans, and other ninja nomad clans, as well as missing ninjas, missed refugees from the Bloodline Wars, as well as several samurai clans. Its shinobi forces rivals that of Konoha in its prime. It is also one of the 5 great shinobi villages in the country, having taken that title from its rival, Konohagakure no Sato. Konan Uzumaki is the Rokudaime Uzukage of Whirlpool, while Yahiko Uzumaki is the commander of the Uzushiogakure Anbu Black Ops. Naruto's wife, Lady Hinata Namikaze, oversees the Uzushiogakure Medic Ninja program while Anko Mitarashi oversees the Interrogation and Torture Division. The ninja teams are similar to those of Konoha, a 4 ninja cell, 1 Junin, 3 Genin Chunin, of which Naruto's children with Hinata are the latter. The Uzushiogakure Council consists of 24 members, 12 civilian and 12 clan heads. The civilian and shinobi cannot influence the other, a lesson Naruto learned as a Konoha ninja, thus keeping the civilian and shinobi matters separate, with Naruto as the council head. Like Konoha, Neo Uzu identifies its Chunin and Junin by flak vests, light gray for the Chunin, dark blue for the Junin and Elite Junin, and are similar in design to those in Konoha. The Uzu Anbu is similar to its Konoha counterparts, but they do not wear animal masks to conceal their identities. Neo Uzu has alliances with Suna, Snow and Mist. Due to Hinata being the wife of the daimyo, has a non-aggression pact with Kumo, due to the fact that Kurabi and Yugito ni both have a high degree of respect for Naruto. Iwa, despite the fact that Naruto is the son of Minato Namikaze, will not attack Neo Uzu as they too signed a non-aggression pact. Konoha and Fire Country, on the other hand, is openly hostile to Neo Uzu and neither the Hokage nor the Fire Daimyo does not recognize the village nor its daimyo. Aside from the village, Whirlpool Country is home to a thriving mercantile guild known as the Pakera Merchant House, of which its main base of operations is located in the coastal town of Azura, with a port in Wave Country. The Pakera Merchant House has branches in Wind, Earth, Lightning, Spring and Water countries, and has negotiated trade agreements with sea, tea, forest, and hot water countries. Combined with the Wave Protectorate's shipping fleet, the Pakera Mercantile Guild is the dominant merchant house in the area. Neo Uzu has a 99% success rate in accomplishing assignments, both around Wave and in the elemental continents. Neo Uzu also holds Chunin and Junin tournaments twice a month among the Uzu shinobi, in order to keep their skills sharp. Uzushiogakures methods of training has made Chunin and Junin level ninja in less time than that of Konohagakure no Sato. Aside from those tournaments, Uzushiogakure also holds an annual taijutsu tournament twice a year, of which the best from the elemental countries flock to Whirlpool Country to test their skills in open combat. Uzu's medic ninja training program is the best Whirlpool has to offer, so much so that water, spring, wind and lightning often send their medics in training to undergo the training program, with great success. Rise of Daimyo Namikaze. In some cases, an end is merely a beginning in disguise. Such is the case of the current daimyo of Whirlpool, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. The son of deposed Whirlpool daimyo Kushina Uzumaki and her husband, the Yondaime Hokage Minato Namikaze, Naruto was the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko, 9-tailed fox, as his mother and grandmother was before him. Orphaned during the 9 Tails attack on Konohagakure no Sato, Naruto was treated as the village pariah, seen by most of the village as the 9 Tails reborn. rather than the village hero as his late father had requested in his final wishes to Jiraiya and Hiruzen Sarutobi. Instead, despite being denied nearly everything in his right, Naruto set his sights on becoming Hokage and with the support of Hiruzen Sarutobi, enlists into the Konohagakure Shinobi Academy. Graduating at the age of 12 along, he was assigned to Cell 7, consisting of Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha, with Kakashi Hatake as their sensei. Prior to the Chunin exams and the death of Hiruzen Sarutobi, Naruto would make an impression wherever he went. Most of Konoha's citizenry and shinobi forces would go on to say that their trading and military alliances were all because of the Uchiha, but history is sometimes written by those who slander their heroes. It was because of Naruto that Konohagakure and Fire Country had several trading and military alliances with Spring, formerly Snow Country, Wave Country, of which he used his shadow clones to steal and hide Getu's immense wealth in Whirlpool Country and handing over Getu's shipping business to the people of Wave T Country, Sea Country, and countless others. Despite all of this, Naruto was denied advancement because of the bigotry of the villagers. Not even when he was instrumental in stopping Gaara's rampage during the Suna-Oto invasion of Konohagakure, or bringing back Tsunade Senju to become the Godime Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato, he was still denied the rank of Chunin. The Uchiha Retrieval Mission, Betrayal, and Banishment. It is known that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Such is the case of Sasuke Uchiha. During the Chunin exams, he was approached by Orochimaru, who had placed the cursed seal of heaven upon his body, thus granting the Uchiha a sample of immense power. Seduced with the opportunity to gain more power under the Snake Sage in order to avenge his clan, Sasuke defected from the village. Almost immediately, a team of genin, led by newly minted Chunin Shikamaru Nara was organized, consisting of Choji Akamaiki, Neji Hyuga, Rock Lee, Kiba Inuzuka, and Naruto Uzumaki on Tsunade's orders to retrieve the rogue Uchiha. Assisted by the Sand siblings of Suna, Gaara, Kankuro and Tamari, the Uchiha retrieval mission was underway. As the rest of Team Shikamaru faced off against the Sound 4, it was Uzumaki who had faced off against the Uchiha. Despite the use of the cursed seal and the power of the Chidori, Sasuke had fallen to both the greater will of his former teammate, as well as the power of the 9 tails which Naruto wielded. With Team Shikamaru suffering numerous injuries, and Uzumaki himself suffering not one, but 2 Chidoris in the chest and shoulder, the Uchiha retrieval mission was a success, as Sasuke Uchiha was returned to Konohagakure no Sato. With the Uchiha safely back in the village and the retrieval mission a success, Naruto had hoped that he would receive the recognition from both the civilians and the shinobi that he had earned. He was wrong. Despite everything, he was to be banished, with the full support of Jiraiya, who is after his father's jutsu and seals Tsunade Senju, who blames Naruto for Kushina's death, the Fire Lord who wants a piece of the combined wealth of the Uzumaki Namikaze family, the other members of the Konoha 11 who sees Naruto as the 9 tails incarnate, and the Konohagakure Council who also wants a cut of the riches of Naruto's parents as well as the Uzushiogakure jutsu. It was clear that both Tsunade and Jiraiya was not crazy about the Uchiha as were the other members, but they hated Naruto even more. He also discovers that he is the son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, and upon his banishment and death at the hands of the Root Anbu, the seals surrounding the Namikaze compound will be weakened enough for Jiraiya to break through, allowing Konoha to rob him of the combined wealth and jutsu belonging to the Uzumaki Namikaze clan. The only person against this sinister plot was Special Junin Anko Mitarashi, who was demoted to Chunin for defending Naruto. Naruto, who had overheard the conspirators as he was disguised as a member of the Anbu Black Ops outside the Hokage's office, was outright furious at this betrayal by those he considered to be the closest thing he had as a family, as well as the callousness of the village and that of the Fire Daimyo. The dream of being Hokage died that very day. Aside from his impending banishment, Naruto had overheard that Hyuga clan head Hiashi Hyuga is planning on stripping his eldest daughter, Hinata Hyuga, of her position as heiress by her father and the Hyuga elders in order to be branded with the caged bird seal upon confirmation of Naruto's death. Upon finding out about her father's intentions from Naruto during a visit to the Hyuga compound, Hinata decides to flee with Naruto. With an assist by the Nine Tails, Naruto left a Kyuubi-powered, explosive cage bushin under a henge in Hinata's place before the pair fled to the safety of the Namikaze estate, the Nine Tails breaking through the seals with ease, allowing Hinata and Naruto access before sealing the estate behind them once more. While inside the estate, the kangaroo trial of Naruto Uzumaki was underway. Disgusted with the proceedings, Gaara and the Sand siblings had left for Suna, but not alone, as the Konohamaru Corps had left the village with them, despite the best efforts of Asuma Sarutobi, who had pleaded with his nephew and his friends to remain in Konohagakure. As expected, during the trial, Sasuke Uchiha was cleared of any and all wrongdoing, as all blame was placed upon the cursed seal and on Uzumaki himself. The trial ended with a guilty verdict. The sentence was immediate banishment from the leaf. Naruto and Hinata both fled the village hours after the banishment orders came down from the Fire Lord and the Konoha Council. Tsunade sent out a squad of Anbu Black Ops, led by Kakashi Hatake, Hiashi Hyuga and Jiraiya in hot pursuit of the pair the following day. While this is going on, Naruto had came into contact with Anko Mitarashi and had asked for her help. She agreed, as she was the only person in the village to realize that Naruto had gotten a raw deal. No one came to Naruto's aid, despite everything. Not even Ichiraku and his daughter, as it had turned out, had been poisoning Naruto's ramen since day one. Fortunately, the Nine Tails had neutralized the poisons, making them ineffective against the now banished ninja. As the people of Konohagakure celebrated the banishment of the Jinchuriki, Naruto made his own plans of escape. First, he and Anko cleaned out the weapons depot of every single weapons grade exploding tags. In the dead or night, they tagged the Market District, the Uchiha District and the Hokage Monument. Second, Naruto had broke into the Hokage's office and stole the Forbidden Scroll of Sealing, as it had belonged to both his mother and father, as well as his birth certificate, signed by the Fire Lord and by his father. Third, out of pure spite, he killed the Fire Lord's cat, skinned it and sent its remains to the Fire Lord's wife. Last, Naruto had Anko use her snake summons to notify Wave, Spring and several of Konoha's allies of their treachery. Returning to the Namikaze estate, Naruto, Anko and Hinata cleaned it out of its immense wealth, as Kushina did not trust Konohagakure with the Uzumaki clan's immense fortunes, combined with the wealth that Minato had gained, which is why she had hidden it inside the estate, and of its jutsu. With the assistance of the Nine Tails, Naruto recovered an O-Katana from a hidden panel, the signature weapon of Kushina Uzumaki, and several Hiraishin kunai belonging to his father. After rigging the place to explode with the remaining tags once Jiraiya break through the seals, Naruto, Hinata and Anko waited. Once the false Naruto and Hinata were destroyed by Jiraiya and the others, Naruto triggered the exploding tags. In the ensuing chaos, Naruto, Hinata and Anko escaped via a reverse summon to the home of the Toads, Myobokuzen Mountain Asylum. With Hinata and Anko backing up his claims, Naruto told the Toads of Konoha's intentions and of Jiraiya's treachery. Enraged, Gamabunta and Fukasaku reversed summoned Jiraiya. The look on the perverted sage's face was all that was needed upon seeing Naruto, Anko and Hinata standing before the Toad Council. Fukasaku, Shima, Gamabunta, Gamakichi and Gamatatsu had ended up beating Jiraiya within an inch of his life, which was followed by the Great Toad Sage sealing off Jiraiya's Senjutsu chakra. Before booting the now former Toad Sage out of Myobokuzen, Fukasaku issued the following decree. The alliance between Konohagakure no Sato and Myobokuzen is hereby dissolved. You shame us with your actions, Jiraiya of the Sannin. We strip you of the summoning contract and give it to the son of the Yondaime. Furthermore, we will contact the other summons whose allegiance is that of Konohagakure and tell them to break off their contracts because of this treachery. Neither you nor the leaf deserve our protection. Should anyone try to summon us, then Orochimaru will be the least of your concerns. Naruto was rewarded with the Toad's contract, and began to undergo senjutsu training. With the help of several shadow clones, he managed to get the basics down. By that time, the world outside of Myobokuzen was changing, and in Konoha's case, it was for the worst. As expected, upon receiving word of the conspiracy and of Konoha's treachery, Suna and Wind Country had terminated the military alliance with Konohagakure and Fire Country. Spring Country and Harugakure, formerly Yukigakure, did the same, terminating its own trading and military alliance agreements with Konoha and Fire Country. Wave Country followed suit, upon paying off its mission. Unknown to Konoha, Naruto had several shadow clones secure the immense wealth belonging to Gato and hidden it in both Wave and the ruins of Whirlpool Country. The victory was a bittersweet one, as Naruto, Anko and Hinata were placed inside the bingo book, all A-rank missing ninja. Of course, Naruto's rank was raised to an S rank when it became known that Jiraiya had triggered the remaining exploding tags inside the Namikaze estate once he had broken the seals, leaving half of his face burned and killing several Anbu present. 3 months after the Sasuke retrieval mission, Naruto received word through Gaara that Spring Daimyo Koyuki Kazuhana was offering the trio of missing ninja political asylum in her native Spring Country. Accepting the offer, Naruto, Anko and Hinata undergo a long and dangerous journey from Myobokuzen to Spring. However, near the fire-lightning border, they ran into a Konohagakure scouting party consisting of Root Anbu. Despite crossing the border into Lightning Country, the Root Anbu remained in pursuit. Before the trio of missing ninja were overrun, they were rescued by a group of Junin, led by Kumo Kunoichi Yugito ni, Jinchuriki to the Nibi no Bakaneko, the two-tailed monster cat. Recognizing the missing ninja from the bingo book, Yugito took them to see the wreckage of Kumo, and his brother, Kurabi, Jinchuriki to the Hachibi no Kyogu, the eight-tailed giant ox. There, the renegade Jinchuriki and the most powerful ninja in Kumo had a sit-down, where a spoke of Naruto's father in a positive light. "We were on opposite sides in the last Shinobi War," A explained. "We both fought when we were Junin. Out of all of the ninja I had fought, your old man earned my respect. I actually mourned his untimely passing. Good man, even better ninja. Gone before his time. Shame. I was looking forward to seeing who was the strongest kage out of both of us." And Naruto would continue to talk for several hours. Afterward, A and the Lightning Daimyo granted Naruto, Anko and Hinata safe passage through Lightning Country, where they caught a ship taking them to Spring Country. Under the protection of Daimyo Kazuhana, Naruto, Anko and Hinata felt safe for the first time in months. With Konohagakure shinobi effectively banned from her lands, the missing ninja finally felt at peace. During this time, the Nine Tails approached Naruto with an interesting offer, training in order to defend himself from not only his former village, but the Akatsuki in exchange for freedom. Naruto accepted the offer, and with the aid of the Kyuubi, safely broke the seal. Naruto had blacked out for 3 days as his chakra system had adjusted to without the chakra of the Nine Tails hindering it. Upon regaining consciousness, he was greeted with the sight of a shapely red-headed woman standing nearly 6 feet tall with piercing green eyes, pale skin, and a curvaceous frame that could put Tsunade to shame. The humanized Nine Tails, whose self-given name was Katami Akashiya, laid out her plans for both Naruto and Hinata. She will train the both of them in ninjutsu, taijutsu and kenjutsu. While Naruto undergoes the sage training by the toads, Hinata will be training under Katami to become the third fox sage. Katami then revealed to Naruto several revelations, that the Uzumaki, Uchiha and Senju clans were the direct descendants of the Six-Path Sage. Whereas the Uchiha was granted the Sharingan, the Senju was granted Earth Release, while the Uzumaki, unknown to the Senju and the Uchiha, were given the ultimate dojutsu, the Rinnegan. In the 4 years under Katami's tutelage, Naruto and Hinata's skills have drastically improved. Hinata had become a talented medic ninja and a prodigy in the taijutsu arts. Naruto, on the other hand, had become a master in both taijutsu and kenjutsu, and mastered both the sage arts and the Rinnegan, as well as learning political intrigue from Daimyo Kazuhana and the Spring Council. By the age of 16, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze was christened the third Toad Sage, while Hinata was declared the third Fox Sage, complete with an enhanced Byakugan. It is also that while in Spring Country, Naruto and Hinata had gotten closer. By Hinata's 13th birthday, they were both dating. Once their training was completed, they were married, their wedding attended by Daimyo Kazuhana, Katami Akashiya, Anko Mitarashi, Gaara and the Sand Siblings, Team Misfits Mari Sarutobi, Moegi and Udon, and Godime Mizukage Meiterumi. The union from the pair would produce 2 children, 1 boy and 1 girl, fraternal twins. Minato Uzumaki Namikaze would be the designated heir to his position of daimyo, while Hitomi Uzumaki Namikaze worked to surpass her mother as a medic ninja. Their godparents were the Kazekage Gaara, and the Sand Siblings, Team Misfits, the Raikage A and his brother Karabi, Yugito Ni and Daimyo Kazuhana, showing that the revitalized Namikaze clan had friends in high places. The mercenary years. The next 7 years, Naruto, his wife, and Anko found work as ninja mercenaries. During this time, 2 renegade Omegakure ninja joined their ranks near Kumogakure. Uzumaki master swordsman Yahiko Uzumaki and his companion, deposed Omegakure leader Konan. Both were former members of the Akatsuki, the organization of S-class missing ninja who were in fact, controlled by Uchiha clan founder Madara Uchiha. As it turned out, Yahiko was descended from refugees of the Uzumaki clan which had scattered in the last Shinobi War, and was raised in Omegakure. Like Naruto, Yahiko was disillusioned with how his organization had ended up corrupted. Furthermore, he was happy to see that he was not the last of the Uzumaki clan. He had also given Naruto vital information in regards to the Akatsuki, that Madara Uchiha desired the powers of the tailed beasts for his plans of word domination. It also became known that Konohagakure was redoubling their efforts in eliminating the missing ninja after Jiraiya's spy network had informed the former Toad Sage that the missing ninja had resurfaced. However, it was during a taijutsu tournament being hosted in T-Country that after defeating Rock Lee, Tenten and Hinata defeating Neji Hyuga and Anko Mitarashi besting Mighty Guy that Tsunade and the Konohagakure Council saw that they were not the same Genin-level ninja who had fled the village. They were now SS-class threats. Over the 7 years, Naruto and Hinata had decimated the Anbu Black Ops and the root Anbu sent their way by Konohagakure no Sato, as well as the bounty hunters looking to cash in on their bounties placed on their heads. The Ino Shika Cho trio fell to the Namikaze couple, Shikamaru notifying the council that the missing ninja were parents, much to Hiyashi's dismay. The elder Ino Shika Cho trio tracked the Namikaze family and Anko Mitarashi to Spring Country, where they were visiting Daimyo Kazuhana. Like their children, Inochi Yamanaka, Shikaku Nara and Shuza Akamaiki failed. Trying the political route, Konoha sent a special envoy to Daimyo Kazuhana led by Jiraiya, Hiyashi Hyuga, Kakashi Hatake, and Danzo Shimura, demanding that she hands over not only Anko, Naruto and Hinata, but also their children, as he planned on branding them with the caged bird seal and shoving them into the branch family. Kazuhana flatly refused the demand, as the Namikaze family and Anko had left earlier that week. Kazuhana was not amused. You want me to hand over the hero of Spring Country, who without him, my homeland would still be under the rule of my uncle, a tyrant who tried to kill me. And why should I surrender the whereabouts of our hero and his family? Hiyashi maintained his stoic posture. With all due respect, Lady Daimyo, the Kyuubi brat is a threat to the safety of Konohagakure no Sato, and of Fire Country. Both him and his whore must be eliminated. Kazuhana scoffed. A threat that is of your own creation. Oh yes, I know how Konoha pissed on the dying wishes of the Yondaime, Naruto's father. I also know about Shimura's desire to turn him into a living weapon because he is the jailer of the 9 tails. Danzu's eye narrowed dangerously. Be careful how you speak of such things, Lady Daimyo. You may not like how people choose to defend themselves. You should be more worried about yourself, Councilman Shimura, Kazuhana replied, her voice as cold as ice. I do not respond to idle threats very well. You can take your demands and shove it. I will not betray Namikaze, his wife, or my godchildren. Furthermore, I have no desire to deal with a village who would not only kiss the of a potential traitor and blame a boy for something that was not in his control. You dare insult the strongest of the shinobi villages? Hiyashi responded. Wars have been started for less. The Fire Lord and the Godime will not like this, Lady Damio. I dare, because Konoha is not as strong as you claim it to be. Kazuhana replied, unfazed by the threat. And I know several other villages and countries that would love to see Konohagakure burn to the ground. Mist and their water Damio. Suna and my counterpart in Wind Country, 3 villages against 1. Not good odds. No Sandame, no Yondaime, and no Jinchuriki to save your. You are right about one thing, Hyuga. Wars have been started for less, especially when the head of a foreign nation is threatened and insulted. Danzo looked troubled. You wouldn't dare, you couldn't. Oh, I would, Councilman, Kazuhana shot back. Now leave. I've made it clear that Konohagakure is not welcome here, especially those from Cell 7. Furthermore, any acts of aggression towards myself or towards Spring Country will result in war. Get out. With the political attempt a failure, Konoha redoubled their efforts, only to have a sizable portion of their Anbu decimated, and the Konoha 11 defeated, along with the elite Junins. In Hot Water Country, it came to a violent head. Led by Kakashi Hatake and Kurenai Sarutobi, Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno, Kiba Inuzuka and Shino Aburame tracked down their missing teammates and a fight ensued. In the years of their exile, the Konoha ninja found out the hard way that Naruto and Hinata had drastically improved in their skills. With Konan and Yahiko watching from the sidelines and keeping an eye on Minato and Hitomi, the fight commenced, with Hinata and Katami fighting Cell 8 and Naruto and Anko dealing with Cell 7. Unknown to both parties, Jiraiya was watching the brawl from the shadows. The fight was indeed brutal. But despite superior numbers, Katami and Hinata defeated Cell 8, while Anko had taken down Sakura Haruno, leaving Naruto to face his former teammate and sensei in a 2-on-1 match. Despite Kakashi being a master of over 1,000 jutsus and Sasuke obtaining the Magankyu Sharingan, Naruto unleashed the fury of his taijutsu and senjutsu arts upon the Sharingan wielders. One Hiroshin followed by 1,000 years of pain, i.e., Naruto punting Kakashi in the, sending him through a tree, and the lazy Junin was out of commission. Anko bowed out of the fight as the Uchiha Prince and the Namikaze fought in a rematch from their confrontation at the Valley of the End. As expected, Sasuke used the power of the Cursed Seal, of which Naruto countered with his Rinnegan. Sasuke was easily outmatched as Naruto once again, and was dealt a crushing blow to Sasuke's ego by defeating him with little effort, but sparing his life and leaving him with some parting words. Remember this day, old friend. Remember the day that the dead last had you in his power. You're not even worth staining my hands or my blade with your blood. Go home. Go home and remember that I spared your pathetic life on a whim. Cross me again, and your brother will be the next best choice of reviving the Uchiha. To put it in words that you will understand, you with me, I will send your head back to Konoha. Upon returning to Konoha, Sasuke, Kakashi and Kurenai report to Tsunade and the council about Naruto's bloodline. This catches Danzu's interest, as he begins to see the possibilities of having the Rinnegan in his possession. During the 7 years abroad, Naruto met an older wandering shinobi by the name of Rashojin Hattori Hanzo. Unknown to Naruto at the time, Rashojin is the great-grandson of the late Omegakure warlord Hanzo the Salamander, and the current holder of the Salamander contract. It was originally thought that Hanzo's family had been wiped out in the Second Shinobi War, but that was false. One of Hanzo's daughters had escaped at his request and had taken refuge at a minor shinobi village. The ensuing battle between Naruto and Rashojin lasted for 3 hours and had ended up leveling a chunk of forest country. Ninjutsu, taijutsu, even summons were used as Naruto and Rashojin gave each other no quarter. In the end, the battle was a draw, but both Naruto and Rashojin came to respect the other for their strength and will. It is through this encounter that Rashojin will take back what is rightfully his, Omegakure no Sato. Revival of Whirlpool and Daimyo of Whirlpool Country. Following the 7 years traveling abroad, Naruto decided to set up shop in Whirlpool Country, his mother's ancestral home. The dream of being a sage having long since died following his banishment, he formed Neo Uzushiogakure no Sato with Konan Uzumaki as the Rokudaime Uzukage. By birthright, Naruto Namikaze was the next in line to rule Whirlpool Country. So he took control as the 5th Whirlpool Daimyo. As Daimyo, Naruto's bingo book entry is automatically invalid, as is Hinata's entry since she is the Daimyo's wife. The Whirlpool ruins was already populated with the remnants of the Uzumaki clan who had decided to stay, as well as a number of Ronin samurai and those who fled Mist and Water Country during the bloodline purges. Backed with the infinite reserves of Gado's wealth that he had stolen, Naruto had Neo Uzushiogakure up and running within 9 months. With Naruto as the daimyo, he began to recruit even more ninja, as well as rebuild the island and village. He even went as far as annexing the island north of Whirlpool, a mountainous, forested region, and turned it into a training and living area for the Uzushiogakure shinobi. The Namikaze children were the first to graduate from the rebuilt Uzushiogakure shinobi. Minato turned out to be a prodigy in the Uzumaki Namikaze style of Fuinjutsu and Taijutsu, while Hitomi was a gifted medic ninja and a master in her mother's style of Shinjuken and her father's Kenjutsu. With Minato possessing the Rinnegan and Hitomi the Byakugan, they found themselves in the crosshairs of their parents' former village. But, as expected, sheer luck in pulling off the impossible, not to mention being completely unpredictable, is an Uzumaki trait that Naruto passed on to his kids once they became Uzu shinobi. Aside from being the daimyo of Whirlpool, Naruto also taught at the Uzushiogakure Shinobi Academy in weapons combat and taijutsu. Through Uzushiogakures methods, the revived village was known to produce Chunin and Junin level ninja in half the time it took for Konohagakure to take to produce ninja of that caliber, which irked Konoha to no end. As daimyo of Whirlpool, Naruto forged military and trading alliances with Lightning, Wind and Spring countries. Through hard negotiation, he managed to get Earth Country and Iwagakure to sign a non-aggression pact between their two countries and villages, as Iwa is honor-bound not to violate the diplomatic immunity status that Naruto has a Whirlpool daimyo. It is also through the annual taijutsu tournaments which Naruto holds that Konoha finds out about Naruto's resurfacing as the Whirlpool daimyo. A team of Konohagakure ninja, led by Jiraiya, were sent to both scout Whirlpool and to win the prize money. They failed to win, but reported back that Naruto was the leader of Whirlpool, and of his children with Hinata. In an interesting side note, Konoha had sent out a marriage proposal to Katami Akashiya, unknown to them as the Nine Tails in human form, on the behalf of Sasuke Uchiha. Katami flat out refused the offer, which ultimately meant that Sasuke and more importantly, Konoha would gain a major foothold in Whirlpool Country, thus undermining Naruto and Konan's authority. Second, Hiashi sent word to Hinata that he wanted to meet both her and her children. Wisely, Hinata refused, knowing that her father would violate the automatic immunity status she has as Naruto's wife by attacking her and their children. Her concerns were verified when a crack squad of Konoha Root Anbu and a squad of Hyuga ninja infiltrated the island country with orders to kidnap both Minato and Hitomi, Danzo wishing to take Minato and train him to be Konoha's ultimate weapons because of his eyes, and Hiashi, wishing to subjugate Hitomi to the caged bird seal. They did not get very far, as their presence was detected by the Whirlpool daimyo and his wife almost immediately. The squad of Konoha ninja were slaughtered with the exception of one of the Hyuga ninja, of which Hinata allowed to return home, after placing a time-delayed caged bird seal on her, designed to kill her once she returned to Konoha to deliver a message to both Danzo and Hiashi. To Councilman Shimura and Hiashi Hyuga, I believe the men sealed inside the scroll belong to your root Anbu and your main branch clan respectively. It is with regret that our children could not accompany them, as they have other priorities pertaining to Whirlpool. Sincerely, Daimyo Naruto Namikaze, Lady Hinata Namikaze. In the 5th year of Naruto's rule as Whirlpool Daimyo, the Akatsuki once again resurfaced. Despite having lost Hidan and Kazuku, both were killed by Yugito and Karabi, the organization of S-class criminals were still a threat. Later, Naruto received word that a joint Odo Akatsuki invasion of Whirlpool Country was imminent. Led by Akatsuki chieftain Madara Uchiha and his second-in-command Pain, with the Odo forces commanded by Orochimaru, Whirlpool looked to be finished before it started. Unknown to both Orochimaru and Madara, their intentions were already known by Naruto through his network of spies and informants, and he had planned accordingly. Suna, led by the Kazekage Gaara, along with Mizu, led by the Godime Mizukage Terumi, formed a military alliance with Uzushiogakure, as they both had scores to settle with both Odo and the Akatsuki. With the blessings of Yugito Ni and Karabi also joined in the battle, along with a small number of Kumo Junin. The Uzushiogakure invasion has begun. With the civilians evacuated, Naruto led the assault. With the shinobi world watching in anticipation, the invasion had begun. Fighting broke out in Whirlpool and North Whirlpool. It was also the shortest battle in the history of warfare, lasting only 3 hours. In that time, the Akatsuki were wiped out, and Orochimaru's forces were decimated. Katami Akashiya was credited with slaying Madara Uchiha, Kabuto Yakushi was slain by Hinata Namikaze, Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hoshigaki were both killed by Naruto Namiaxe. Orochimaru narrowly escaped as his Odo forces were slain down to the last man. Seeking asylum in the one place he had sought to destroy, he was welcomed into Konohagakure by his former teammates. There, Orochimaru had given a fully detailed account of the Uzushiogakure invasion, and of Itachi's defeat by the hands of the Whirlpool Daimyo himself. Sasuke was not very happy to hear that Naruto was the one to have killed his brother. Tsunade and the Konohagakure Council grants Orochimaru asylum under a series of conditions, that Orochimaru will not conduct any experiments on the populace and that he takes Sasuke Uchiha on as his student. Orochimaru agrees to the conditions set before him. The legendary Sannin were once again on the same side. It would be another year until Orochimaru would meet his untimely end. As Whirlpool rebuilt its village and island, Naruto entered into a series of negotiations with the people of Wave Country. As Wave was still open to attack from Fire Country, the Whirlpool Daimyo offered protection in exchange for Wave becoming a protectorate under Whirlpool, as most of the Uzu shinobi there had loved ones and family in the southern island. Tazuna and the Wave Council agreed to the terms. Wave Country would greatly benefit under the protection of Uzushiogakure and its daimyo, who they see as a hero. However, Fire Country and Konohagakure would object to the plans in a most extreme way, thus initiating the Wave conflict. Led by the 3 Sannin, Konohagakure invaded Wave Country 2 years later, claiming that Whirlpool was a threat and that Wave would act as a buffer zone. Before a full-scale war could erupt, Naruto challenged the 3 sages in a 3-on-1 match. Should they win, then Naruto would surrender Wave and retreat to Whirlpool. Should Naruto win, then Konoha loses all claim to Wave and leave the island. With the gathered Konoha ninja watching, Sasuke Uchiha, Kakashi Hatake and Sakura Haruno among them as well as the other members of the Konoha 11 Naruto fought the 3 Sannin. Despite the numbers advantage that the 3 Konohagakure ninja had over the Whirlpool Daimyo, Naruto had countered each of the Sannin's attacks and defeated them. With the people of Wave, the Konohagakure ninja and the Kazekage and Mizukage watching as witnesses, Naruto, perched on top of Gamakichi's head, passed judgment upon the Sannin. By right, Wave Country is now under the protection of Whirlpool Country and of Neo Uzushiogakure no Sato. Any further attempts of aggression towards the people of Wave will be seen as an act of war. To you, Jiraiya, Tsunade Senju, and Orochimaru, You were granted the title of Konohagakure's legendary Sannin by Hanzo the Salamander as a result of surviving his onslaught. As that title was blessed upon you, so it can be taken away. As the daimyo of Whirlpool, I strip you of your title of legendary Sannin. Orochimaru did not take the news very well. Kusanagi drawn, he tried to attack Naruto from behind. Naruto, having suspected that Orochimaru would try and pull something like this, activated a hidden seal placed on his body during the match, effectively immobilizing him long enough for Naruto to decapitate him with his katana. Threatening to do the same to the remaining former Sannin, Tsunade and Jiraiya led the Konoha ninja back across the bridge and back into Fire Country. Days later, the Great Naruto Bridge was destroyed by a squad of Uzushiogakure ANBU's demolitions unit, effectively cutting off access from the mainland. It would be the last time that the Namikaze clan would set their eyes on the disgraced Sannin ever again. Invasion of Fire Country. In the decade following the banishment of Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, Konohagakure's status as one of the strongest shinobi villages had started to wane. Repeated attacks from both the smaller villages and the deaths of several high-ranking shinobi, and the near-crippling effects of the trade embargo set in place, Konoha, and Fire Country as a whole was now seen as a pariah state, especially after their performance during the Wave conflict in which Naruto had stripped the title of Konoha's legendary Sannin from Tsunade, Orochimaru and Jiraiya. After the death of Orochimaru, Tsunade stepped down as Godime Hokage and Sasuke Uchiha was named the Rokudime Hokage of Konoha. Almost immediately, Sasuke made plans to invade Whirlpool and the Wave Protectorate and destroy his nemesis once and for all. But it was not meant to be. With the rise of Omegakure as a major shinobi power and its alliance with Iwakage no Sato, Danzo, the Fire Lord and the Konoha Civilian Council saw Rashogen Hanzo as a major threat. Unknown to Sasuke, Danzo had ordered a Black Ops mission with his best Root Anbu, ordering them to head into AIM and assassinate Rashogen Hanzo. The mission was a failure, as Hanzo and his AIM shinobi slew the Root Anbu. It was only after AIM marched into Fire Country and towards the Fire Capital did Sasuke find out about what Danzo had done. Furious, Sasuke killed not only Danzo Shimura, but also the Konoha Civilian Council, the two elder ninja, Koharu Udatane and Hanmura Mitokado, and seized control of the Root Anbu. Hanzo's forces moved swiftly through Fire Country, laying siege upon the Fire Capital and taking the Fire Lord and his family hostage. Sasuke led a crack squad of Junin-level ninja to liberate the Fire Capital and free the Fire Lord. But Hanzo saw this coming and led the Hokage and his forces into a trap. Out of a force of 200 Junin, only 10 survived the slaughter. Among the casualties were the original Ino Shika Cho trio, Shino and Shibi Aburame, Sum and Kiba Inuzuka, Hiyashi Hyuga, Neji Hyuga, Maeda Gai, Rock Lee, and Kakashi Hatake. Sasuke Uchiha was injured when Hanzo ripped out his eyes and crushed them under his heel, before crippling the Uchiha, rendering him unable to use his legs. The mission was a failure and the surviving Junin was forced to retreat. In desperation, Konoha and the Fire Lord reached out to their former allies for salvation. Suna and Wind Country flat out refused, as did Spring Country. Kumo and Lightning Country remained neutral. With Sasuke Uchiha crippled, Tsunade was forced to retake the post of Hokage. Several other minor shinobi villages rallied to Omegakure's cause, launching guerrilla-style raids on Konoha, weakening the village even further. After Tsunade took back her post, Grass Ninja launched a devastating raid on Konoha, destroying the hospital and killing all inside, including Sakura Haruno, Shizune and the crippled Rokudime himself. The situation looked very bleak for Konoha and Fire Country. Their shinobi forces were down by half, leaving only a handful of battle-experienced Junin, along with Chunin and Genin who had not seen battle. Oh, yes, Konohagakure was in its final days. Soon, Hanzo would do what even Orochimaru had failed to do, and will soon launch a leave no survivors assault on the village. Neo Uzushiogakure no Sato, Whirlpool Country. 19 years after the Uchiha retrieval mission, 8 years after the founding of Whirlpool. Early morning in Neo Uzushiogakure no Sato. Aside from the Uzu Anbu which patrolled the streets and the surrounding countryside, it was very peaceful. The previous night, however, it was a different story. It was the anniversary of Whirlpool's reformation under its current daimyo. The son of its previous daimyo, Whirlpool Kunoichi Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, and her husband, the Yondaime Hokage Minato Namikaze, he had resurrected Neo Uzu and led it to greatness under his rule. In 8 years, Neo Uzushiogakure was one of the strongest shinobi villages, having surpassed Konohagakure no Sato. Inside the daimyo's residence, which was a walled compound, rather than a castle typical for the ruler of the country, the daimyo in question was in bed with his wife. Clothes were strewn across the floor from the door leading to their bedroom. The room was locked with a seal, which kept any noise made inside out and to keep anyone wanting to come in outside. The man was 6 feet tall, with a wiry muscular frame. Tousled blonde hair framed his face, of which the fox-like whiskers which had identified him as a Jinchuriki were gone. Despite being 31, he still held a boyish charm to his face. He was also awake, as his body was pressed firmly into his wife's backside. One calloused hand ran along her curves, causing her to giggle in her sleep. 19 years, and he knew the contours and curves of her 5'6" frame like the back of his hand. Like him, she was also 31, him being 2 months older than she was, buxom with long dark hair ending halfway down her back. Usually she would let it fall down her back, but when she was training the medic ninjas or sparring, she kept it tied in a braid. She giggled again. This time, she was awake. "Pervert," she whispered. "That's daimyo pervert to you," was the reply. She turned around in the bed, so that she was facing him. His azure eyes stared back into those of pupilless lavender, which identified her as one of the Hyuga, and wielder of the Bikagen. Hinata Namikaze stuck her tongue out at her husband. "Well, daimyo pervert, you plan on getting out of bed? Our kids are still here, you know." Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze smiled back at his wife. "We got about an extra hour. You can set your clock to Minato and Hitomi." He moved in for a kiss, but ended up kissing air, as Hinata had escaped his grasp. She was now standing on her feet, as the day she was born. With natural beauty like hers, men would gladly go to war for her hand. Fortunately for Naruto, she was all his. At least she was considering enough not to pull a substitution jutsu like the last time. "Just one kiss, Hina-hime," he mocked begged. Her response was to throw a pair of pants at him before slipping on a crimson robe over her form. Naruto saw that it was the robe he picked up for her from his last visit to Wave Country when he was checking up on the Uzu garrison station there. Hinata loved that robe. "The last time you said that, we ended up destroying the dining room table," she replied as Naruto got out of bed, now from the waist up. Naruto smiled at the memory. It was 3 weeks ago. Hitomi and Minato were out on assignment, Katami was roaming the grounds in her fox form, and they were all alone. "In my defense, you started it," he replied, as it was Hinata who instigated the whole thing. One flash of yellow light and Hinata found herself pinned to the wall by her husband. She could have easily used a substitute jutsu to escape, but she enjoyed teasing him, and she enjoyed his attention to her. So, Naruto gently pressed his weight against his wife. "If I wanted to stop right now, you think you could stop me?" Hinata smiled. "I think the question you should be asking me is, do I really want to?" They resumed their kissing. Naruto noticed that Hinata was leading him back to their bed. "Damn, it feels good to be the daimyo," he thought as Hinata pounced on him. Neo Uzushiogakure Complex. Sometime later. The Neo Uzushiogakure complex served as the nerve center of both Neo Uzushiogakure and of Whirlpool Country. Rather than a tower, like Konoha's Hokage Tower, the compound consisted of 2 buildings. The first housed the offices of the Uzukage and the daimyo, and the second was known as the House of Sovereigns, which housed not only the council chambers, but it served as the main headquarters of both the Pakara merchant house and of Neo Uzu's spy network. Currently, Naruto was inside his office, signing off on several documents. Mostly minor disputes between shinobi and clans, nothing serious. Conan, on the other hand. Naruto smirked inwardly at his cousin's wife. She loved the position of Kage but hated the paperwork. Naruto took pity on her and taught her the Kage Bushin, which saved her the headache of paperwork. Naruto himself used the shadow clones on several occasions, when the paperwork that came with being the daimyo became too much for him. Leaning back in his chair, his eyes roamed over several photos that sat on his desk. The first was that of himself when he was younger and the old man that was like a grandfather to him, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Naruto was wearing the old man's Kage hat, while Sarutobi smiled broadly. The second was that of Hinata and himself on his wedding day in Spring Country over a decade earlier. Naruto smiled at the memory. Turned out that Koyuki had made friends with a priestess from Demon Country named Shion, who conducted the ceremony at her request. Hinata had looked radiant in her dress with the flowers in her hair. It was a private ceremony, with only their closest friends and allies present. The third picture was a family photo of the Namikaze family. Naruto and Hinata were seated, Naruto dressed in a white shirt, black vest, pants and boots, while Hinata was clad in a stunning black shosogum, and looking very regal in her pose. Then there were their two children. Fraternal twins, rather than being identical. They were both diametric opposites of each other from their personality down to their respective bloodlines. Minato took after himself in both personality and in skill, as he was a prodigy in Fuinjutsu and Kenjutsu. He did not have the Byakugan like his sister, but rather the Rinnegan. 14, with spiky blonde hair mimicking his father, with lively blue eyes. Fortunately, he did not take to wearing orange as he once did when he was just a genin, but rather dark colors, more suitable for a shinobi. His Hitai-8 was around his head. He was also his heir to rule as daimyo once he stepped down. Hitomi took after Hinata in both appearance and quiet personality. Pale skin with short dark hair, think MGS4's Rosemary's hairdo, with the pupil-less lavender eyes that were a signature trait of the Hyuga. Unlike her brother, she was a prodigy in taijutsu, and a natural in medical ninjutsu. Like her brother, her attire was also dark, i.e., Hinata's Shippuden uniform, her Hitai-8 was around her left arm. She would be the next Fox Sage when it came time for Hinata to step down. They were born a year after their marriage. When Naruto revived his mother's homeland, they were the first to enroll into the Shinobi Academy. At the age of 10, they both graduated. 3 years later, they both received their Chunin vests after successfully completing the Chunin exams. It was then he noticed the scrolls. They had been dropped off earlier by a member of the Neo Uzu Anbu and Naruto had forgotten all about them as he focused on completing his paperwork. From the markings on the scroll, they came from the ANBU's Intelligence and Recon Division. Naruto picked up the first scroll and opened it. The scroll was brief, but the message contained inside caught him off guard. It was from the spy network located near the bounty station near the Fire Lightning border. It read, Rain invaded Fire Country. Fire daimyo prisoner inside the Fire capital. Naruto looked at the time and date. 72 hours old. This happened during the Neo Uzu festival, he thought as he opened the second scroll. This one was more recent, as it was only a day old. This one was a bit more detailed, as it said that following the Fire Lord's capture, a crack team of Konoha elite Junin, led by their Rokudaime Hokage attempted to infiltrate the Fire capital in order to free the daimyo. The mission was a failure, and most of the team that was sent in were killed. Naruto read the names of those who were killed in the rescue attempt. Inoichi Yamanaka, Shikaku Nara, Shuza Akamaiki, Sum Inuzuka, Kiba Inuzuka, Asuma Sarutobi, Kurenai Sarutobi, Shibi Aburame, Shino Aburame, Neji Hyuga, Hiyashi Hyuga, Maeda Guy, Rock Lee, and Kakashi Hatake. The Rokudaime, Sasuke Uchiha was grievously injured while fighting the head of a Megakure and had to be carried out by the surviving Junin. Naruto leaned back in his seat. Even after nearly 20 years, his former village had still left a bad taste in his mouth. Konoha was full of traitors and backstabbers who had showed their true colors on that fateful day. No one, not even his former teammates, helped him. All because he was a Jinchuriki. The dream of earning the people's respect by becoming Hokage died that day, which led to him and Hinata, along with their sole supporter, Anko Mitarashi, to flee Konoha. He summoned an Anbu who was outside and ordered him to bring in Anko, Konan, Yahiko, Hinata and Katami to his office immediately. Minutes later, so AIM made their move against Fire Country, huh? Anko asked as Konan and Yahiko read the scrolls. I'm surprised this didn't happen sooner. Konoha and Fire Country must have done something big to piss those two villages off. Given who's running the village now, I wouldn't be surprised, Hinata replied. To say that Sasuke Uchiha is a tad unbalanced is to say Water Country is a bit wet. But he could be a puppet ruler, Konan said. The Konoha Council holds most of the power, while the Hokage is nothing but a figurehead. It was a miracle that the Sandaime managed to keep you away from Danzo. Naruto frowned. That meddling, one-eyed warhawk had been a thorn in his side. Whether it's trying to kidnap him when he was younger, or his attempt to kidnap his children for their bloodlines, he annoyed him to no end. But Konan did have a point. Hiruzen always did have a kind heart, Naruto admitted, smiling at the picture of himself and old man Sarutobi. But you're right, Konan. One thing I learned about politics is that you say one thing, but mean another. When the old hag stepped down, the council must have basically handed the Uchiha the position of Hokage, thinking that he could be someone they could control. Only problem is that the Uchiha runt does not like to be controlled in one way or another, Katami pointed out. The Uchiha wants to be the ones in control, and does not share power with anybody. She smiled meanly. A side effect of the Sharingan is that it makes the wielder batshit insane. That got a good laugh out of the group. You got a point there, Katami said. Look at Madara, Fugaku and Itachi. And it's not hereditary, as in Hataki's case. Any idea as to who is running AIM? Konan asked. Naruto chuckled darkly. The great-grandson of Hanzo the Salamander, Rashojin Hanzo. Took me a while to remember the name, but it clicked in my head. We met in Forest Country, remember? That and he showed up several times whenever Uzu holds the taijutsu tournament. Naruto remembered the man very well. A hulking mountain of muscle standing 6 feet 8 with dark hair and a deep, menacing voice when angered. He was like them at a time, a nomad without a home. He was also a very skilled shinobi and proved it when he challenged Naruto in a test of skills. The battle ended in a draw, but Naruto respected the man's skill. Rashojin also showed the same respect towards him as well, and the two men left the field of battle. Rashojin was fortunately not like his crazed great-grandfather. When Hanzo ended the wars and came out as AIM's new leader, he had his concerns. In the end, he decided to leave the older ninja alone. Danzo fought in the Second Shinobi War alongside Old Man Sarutobi, the Snake, the Hag and the Perv. I also know that Danzo screwed Hanzo over and had him and most of his family killed, Naruto noted. Danzo must have heard that Hanzo's descendant had ended the civil wars in AIM and seized control of the village and area, and saw him as a serious threat. So he must have dispatched his root Anbu to AIM to assassinate Hanzo. Konan immediately caught on what Naruto was saying. Only problem is that the mission goes south, Hanzo finds out who is responsible, and wants the heads of those responsible. But he doesn't stop there. He wants to get even by razing Konoha to the ground, and Iwa wants in on the action. You sure about that? Anko asked. If I was either Hanzo or Kuretsuchi, I would, Yahiko said. The council need to know about this. And what about our shinobi? If AIM attack them, then we will have no other choice but to counterattack. I agree, Naruto replied. Conan, send word to our shinobi abroad, have them pull back into Suna, Kumo and Haru. They are not to antagonize the ninja from AIM and Konoha in any form or fashion. Follow the shinobi rules of engagement for this one. All shinobi assignments and missions are temporarily suspended in the fire region until this mess is over. There's something else, Hinata said. I'm sorry for getting off the subject, but I got to ask. Back when we worked as mercenary ninja, you killed the bounty hunters that came after us, my former clansmen, the Anbu and Root Anbu. Naruto saw where this was going. Even Conan, Yahiko, Katami and Anko were curious. But you wondered why we spared our former senseis, our former teammates and the higher-ranking Junin. He smiled. Easy, Hinaheim. As shinobi, we are told the many ways we can kill our enemies. Flesh can tear, bones can break. But to wound their pride, to crush their spirit like God's boot heel is how you truly destroy them. Yahiko nodded in understanding. The disgrace of getting ones handed to them by the dead last and the worthless heir to the Hyuga would definitely eat at their ego. And they have to live with the shame and disgrace that the two people who were written off and banished had spared their lives because they weren't worth killing is a fate worse than death. Aside from that, you make even more mistakes, up to the point where you will ultimately bring about your own destruction. Anko approved. Psychological warfare at its finest, the Snake Queen noted. I like how you think, Naruto. Have I ever told you that? The daimyo of Whirlpool chuckled. Maybe, but I fail to remember. Go and the council. Might as well tell them about this new development. The room cleared out, with the exception of Katami and Hinata. Something on your mind? Naruto asked. Konoha has been hit pretty hard ever since we left the village, Hinata noted. They've lost every single alliance they had because of you. On top of that, they've been fending off attacks from rival villages, but without allies, their power and influence has been decreasing. There's something else I did not mention about the failed attempt to rescue the Fire Daimyo, Naruto said. The attempt to rescue the Fire Lord resulted in several casualties. The original Ino Shika Cho trio, Asuma and Kurenai Sarutobi, your former father and cousin, the Inuzuka matriarch and her son, the Aburame. Maida Guy and Rock Lee, and Hitaki, all KIA. Naruto noticed the expression on Hinata's face. It was a subtle one, but it soon disappeared, leaving a neutral, stoic expression. Hearing about the demise of her former father and cousin, her former team and sensei left her with mixed emotions, but she squashed them immediately. And the Uchiha? Katami asked. Blinded in both eyes and left a cripple, Naruto replied. He had long since closed the chapter on his rivalry with the Uchiha, as he had proven to Sasuke and all of Konoha that he was stronger than their precious Uchiha. It wasn't because of the Rinnegan that he wielded either. While Sasuke had everything literally handed to him, Naruto had worked hard to get where he was at. And that hard work paid off when he revived his mother's homeland. You know that Konoha will more than likely ask for our help, Hinata said. They always believed that you would defend your precious people in their darkest hour. Naruto scoffed. The people that are precious to me are here. Konoha chose a traitor over me. They did not see me as a human being, but rather the Nine Tails reborn. Some of them hate the Uchiha runt, but they despise me even more. People I thought were my friends tried to kill me over the years. Tsuki and Ayane with their poisoned ramen, your own sensei with her genjutsu. Even Tsunade and Jiraiya wanted my death for their own selfish reasons. The daimyo of Whirlpool rose from his seat. I will not aid Konoha in this mess of their own choosing. Even if they offer me the position of Hokage, I would not accept it. They made their choice. Now they have to live with it, which is not for very long. Fallout 3. Konohagakure no Sato, Fire Country, 2 weeks later. 19 years earlier, Konohagakure no Sato was in its prime. It was the strongest of the shinobi villages. With clans such as the Hyuga and the Uchiha among their ranks, as well as the power of the Nine Tails at its disposal, it was a village that commanded respect and was feared by its enemies. Now, 19 years after the Uchiha retrieval mission, the Leaf's power and influence has waned. It was no longer the strongest of the villages, as that position was taken by Neo Uzu. The village itself was under attack by rival ninjas from the smaller villages, such as Smoke, Grass and Waterfall. Each attack was repelled by Konoha just barely, but it was starting to take a serious toll on the village. Parts of the village were still in ruins from repeated attacks. The village walls had numerous holes in them from exploding tags and animal summons. And the war was just getting started. Then, the leader of Omegakure came to the village. Tsunade Senju and the Konohagakure Council, what was left of it, looked down on the leader of Omegakure with great disdain. It wasn't the actual leader, but rather a shadow clone sent to Konoha from the Fire Capital, where he currently was at with his hostages, the Fire Lord and his family. With Sasuke Uchiha dead, Tsunade was forced to take back the mantle of Hokage. The leader of Omegakure was tall, standing nearly 7 feet tall. Dark hair was tied into a ponytail, the eyes showing intensity, as well as hidden intelligence, and stark ruthlessness. In the 19 years since the conclusion of the Uchiha retrieval mission, Konoha had not recovered from the fallout following Uzumaki's banishment. She had no love for the Uchiha, and made it clear. But she despised Naruto even more, as she blamed him for Kushina's death. Jiraiya was also present. The left side of his face was horribly scarred, a memento from Naruto. Using blood left over from his blood clone, Jiraiya had unsealed the Namikaze estate, only to find the place empty of its wealth and jutsus. The chest loaded with exploding tags was something that even he didn't see coming. Your ninja disappoint me, Senju. His voice was deep and menacing. Here, I was expecting a challenge from the village who fancied itself as the strongest of the shinobi nations. If your precious Uchiha wasn't much of a challenge, then what is the point of talking? You got a lot of nerve to show your face here, Tsunade shot back. The will of fire is still strong in the leaf. And yet, you have failed in your rescue attempt of the Fire Lord, Hanzo replied. And there's not need for empty threats. We all know that Konoha is no longer the strongest of the shinobi villages. Your allies have long since forsaken you because of your past deeds. Tell me, Senju, did the Leaf ever got their alliances back with Suna? Perhaps Spring, even Mist. I don't think so. You are alone in this matter. Tsunade's voice died in her throat. It was true. Ever since Naruto's banishment, the Leaf and Fire country had become a pariah state. In less than 2 decades, Konoha had lost its status as one of the 5 great villages to Neo Uzu. And even more worse, Hasnu continued, twisting the knife, despite repelling attempts of invasion by the smaller villages, they have been taking their toll. Your shinobi forces are down by what, half? Maybe more. Konoha is still strong. Hanabi Hyuga, now the Hyuga clan head following the death of her father shouted. He had died while attempting to rescue the Fire Daimyo, along with her sensei, Asuma Sarutobi. We will fight you to the death. Hanzo tapped his chin as if in thought. Strange. Your father and cousin said the same thing before I killed them, he replied as if he was discussing the weather. That did it for Hanabi. Byakugan ablaze, she tried to rush the older man, but was held back by the Ino Shika Cho trio, and Hana Inazuka. You monster. You killed my father and cousin. I'll kill you. Hanabi screamed. Hanzo merely waved her off, as if she wasn't a threat. You couldn't kill a in your state. But me, on the other hand. I could launch a full-scale, take no survivors assault on this cesspool of a village, and with Iwa backing me up, Konoha will be nothing more than a footnote in the history books. But, Jiraiya prodded as Hanabi collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably. But, I will give you a chance for you to save your village and live in what little dignity you have left, Hanzo continued. As I've said before, your ninja were not that decent in the field of battle. You have grown complacent in your supposed superiority and gotten lax. Your trump card, the Uchiha, has ultimately failed. Hatake, the Sarutobis, that crazy taijutsu master and his protege, the Inazuka, the original Ino Shika Cho trio, those who you have put your faith in, has failed you. Give me the challenge of a lifetime, and whether I win or lose, I will withdraw from Fire Country. We'll fight you, anytime and anywhere, Tsunade said. You misunderstood me, Senju, Hanzo replied. The challenge is not here. I wish to fight the one the leaf has forsaken in favor of the Uchiha. Jiraiya's eyes went wide, as did Tsunade's, and everyone else in the room. You mean, the old perv began. Yes, Hanzo replied. This is not negotiable. I wish to fight the leaf's greatest champion. The one who had defeated the Uchiha Runt not once, but 3 times, and has stripped you and your comrades of that precious title that my great-grandfather bestowed upon you. I want the son of the Yondaime Hokage. Bring me Naruto Uzumaki. Office of the Hokage, later. Tsunade looked out of the window and into the village. Repeated attacks over the years had taken its toll upon the leaf. Konoha was now reduced to half of its population and the village was in bad shape. Ever since Omegakure had declared war on Fire Country 2 weeks earlier, the minor villages had been launching guerrilla-style assaults on the village, weakening the leaf even further. The last battle was quite vicious. Grass Ninja had infiltrated the Konoha hospital and leveled it. The hospital was transformed into a triage center. Sasuke Uchiha was being treated at the time by Shizune and Sakura Haruno when the attack came. Grass Shinobi came charging in and let loose with explosive clones littered with exploding tags. The hospital was destroyed in the blast, killing all inside. The Uchiha line, along with the Sharingan, was now extinct. The civilian council was gone, having fled the village with their families, leaving only what remained of the Shinobi Council. Aside from Hanabi Hyuga, who had taken her father's place on the council, there was Hana Inuzuka, now the last surviving member of the Inuzuka clan. Shikamaru Nara, Ino Yamanaka and Choji Akamaiki also sat on the council, replacing their fallen parents. The old guard, Danzo Shimura, Kaharu Udatane and Hanmura Mitokado, had died at the hands of Sasuke himself when it became clear that this whole mess was Danzo's fault. After Rashojin Hanzo left the village, Tsunade retreated back to her office. Seated behind the desk, sake bottle in hand, she was taking swig after swig of the drink. Ever since the deaths of Shizune and Sakura, she hadn't stopped crying and drinking. What remained of the civilian population mourned the death of the last Uchiha, some of them even blaming Naruto for their current predicament. Tsunade chuckled bitterly. She blamed Naruto for many things. But this time, Naruto was innocent. She blamed him for Kushina's death, and blamed him for the downward spiral which led to Konoha's fall from grace in the revival of Whirlpool, leading to Neo Uzu's position as one of the great shinobi villages. But the one thing she hated him for most of all was stripping herself, Jiraiya and Orochimaru of their titles of Konoha's legendary Sannin following the wave conflict 2 years ago. Both Konoha and the Fire Lord thought that Whirlpool and Neo Uzu would self-destruct with the so-called Kyuubi brat as its daimyo. They even bet on Iwa declaring war on Whirlpool and eliminate the last Namikaze once and for all. But as always, pulling off the impossible was at the top of Naruto's already long resume. He had grown even more powerful during his exile, and both him and his wife were a credible threat. Not even the remaining members of the Konoha 11, their senseis nor Danzu's route could stop them. He even negotiated a non-aggression pact with Iwa and Earth Country, thus securing Whirlpool's safety. Iwa may had been war-happy, but even they would not attack Naruto, despite being Minato's son, given his automatic diplomatic status and that the Wind Daimyo had personally forgiven Naruto for the sins of the father. So when Konoha marched into Wave Country via the bridge, they planned on annexing the island to Fire Country and use it as a forward operations base to invade Whirlpool. They were surprised to find that the main village was already evacuated and that the daimyo of Whirlpool was already there, with his wife, and with his Neo Uzu forces. It was there that Naruto threw down his challenge, Konoha's legendary Sannin versus the Whirlpool of Daimyo. The prize was control of Wave Country. Tsunade had to admit that Naruto was out of his mind to present those terms. Should he win, Konoha will leave Wave, never to return, and Wave will be under the protection of Whirlpool. Should Konoha win, then Whirlpool will concede defeat and withdraw from Wave, allowing Konoha to take over. The three Sannin accepted the challenge, assuming that they would net an easy win. They thought wrong. Naruto was once known as the unpredictable ninja, the one who could make the impossible possible. It was something he took pride in, both as a warrior and as the daimyo of Whirlpool. With his victories over his former cell, Madara Uchiha and Itachi Uchiha, the three Sannin could have been cautious. Naruto took on the three Sannin, with the gathered Uzu and Konoha ninja watching. Tsunade remembered how Naruto had countered her chakra-powered super strength with his own, of how he destroyed the coffins of the first four Hokages when Orochimaru tried to unleash the impure world resurrection, and of how he countered Jiraiya's Rasengan with a Senjutsu-powered Rasengan of his own. In the end, their arrogance had led to their downfall. And Naruto had it planned as well. Aside from Neo Uzu and Konoha, the Kazekage and the Raikage were also present, as were the Spring Daimyo, who was shooting a movie in Wave when they heard about the invasion. Despite the fact that it was a 3-on-1 battle, Naruto had the Shadow Clones, his Fuinjutsu, the Hiraishin Jutsu and the Rinnegan. The three Sannin were defeated by the Whirlpool Daimyo, by the same person that they had each considered the dead last, and completely useless. Summoning Gamakichi, Naruto stood on top of his head and made the following proclamation. By right, Wave Country is now under the protection of Whirlpool Country and of Neo Uzushiogakure no Sato. Any further attempts of aggression towards the people of Wave will be seen as an act of war. To you, Jiraiya, Tsunade Senju, and Orochimaru, you were granted the title of Konohagakure's legendary Sannin by Hanzo the Salamander as a result of surviving his onslaught. As that title was blessed upon you, so it can be taken away. As the daimyo of Whirlpool, I strip you of your title of legendary Sannin. Lady Hokage. The voice of Ino Yamanaka snapped Tsunade out of her thoughts. She was not alone. Standing on either side of her were her teammates, Shikamaru Nara and Choji Akamaiki. Jiraiya was behind the Ino Shika Cho trio, as was Tenten. The war had taken its toll on the four elite Junin, as Ino, Shikamaru and Choji had lost their parents in the failed rescue attempt, while Tenten was the remaining survivor of Cell 9. It had gotten worse from there, as Yoshino Nara committed suicide upon notification of her husband's death, and Choji's mother had a fatal heart attack once it was known that Shuza was dead. Neither had children of their own, but took it upon themselves to raise Asuma and Kurenai's two children. The Ino Shika Cho trio were also present in the council chambers when Hanzo made his demand. They knew that Naruto would defend his precious people, but after being screwed over for the Uchiha and shunned and hunted by those he thought were his friends, even Shikamaru knew that the chances of Naruto coming to their aid were pretty slim. Anything from our former allies? Tsunade asked. Earlier in the week, she had sent out word of Konoha's distress to Suna, Spring and even Kumo for aid. Bad news all around, Ino replied. Suna flat out refused to help, as did Spring. Mist also said no. Kumo is remaining neutral in this conflict. There is no way around it. We need Naruto. After how we screwed him over for the Uchiha and a piece of his inheritance. Shikamaru butted in, knowing full well of Konoha's personal motives in banishing and their attempts to kill the former genin turned daimyo for his clan's wealth and jutsu. Not to mention Hiashi and Danzu's attempts to kidnap their children. We'll be lucky if Naruto doesn't lead the charge into Konoha himself. Jiraiya and Tsunade knew that the slacker was right. Neither person had no love for the Uchiha, but they disliked Naruto for their own reasons. It was because of those actions that Naruto saw their offenses as a betrayal to both his parents and to himself. And Naruto never forgot those who slighted him and his family name. Both generations of the Ino Shika Cho trio had went after him, Hinata and Anko, whilst the trio were working as ninja mercenaries. Both had failed. When it became known that Naruto himself had revived Whirlpool as its daimyo, it was Shikaku and Shikamaru who reminded the Konoha Council and the Fire Lord that Naruto, much to their dismay, was protected under diplomatic status, as he was the recognized leader of a foreign nation, as was Hinata, since she was the wife of said daimyo. But it was Sasuke who pointed out that as their children were active shinobi, they were fair game, hence Danzo and Hiyashi's attempts to capture both Minato and Hitomi, Minato for Danzu's root Anbu because of his Rinnegan, and Hitomi for Hiyashi in order to subjugate the girl to the caged bird seal. That attempt failed. Naruto saw each failure as giving a big middle finger to Konoha. Tsunade didn't know who she hated more. Danzo was the one directly responsible for the mess that Konoha was currently in, along with Koharu and Hanmura. All three were killed, along with a sizable number of the civilian council by Sasuke himself. There's the possibility that Naruto could forgive us, Ino suggested, grasping for straws. If it was the old Naruto, then yeah, the slacker replied. People change in nearly 20 years. Especially those you screw over, Ino. Enough. Both of you, Tsunade ordered. We are in a state of emergency. If we don't do anything, then Konoha will be destroyed. As much as I hate to admit, we need that brat of a daimyo if not to defend Konoha, but to at least force Hanzo to cease hostilities. It was also a known fact that Whirlpool's daimyo was well respected, even to his enemies. Having survived being a missing ninja longer than any known ninja tends to do wonders for your reputation. That, and playing a role in the Akatsuki's destruction was a nice bonus. Even the remaining members of the Konoha 11 saw that their village was better off with the Jinchuriki. The civilian council thought otherwise, praising the now dead Sasuke for their prosperity when it was actually Naruto's doing. We don't have an exact timetable over when Hanzo and his allies will attack Konoha, Jiraiya said. The scarred super pervert took his place alongside Tsunade. Which is why you four will leave for Whirlpool immediately. By the time you will get there, the annual taijutsu tournament that Whirlpool annually holds will commence. And by tradition, the daimyo of Whirlpool must grant anyone who comes before him an audience. That part was very much true. Ever since Naruto revived both Neo Uzu and Whirlpool, he hosted an annual taijutsu tournament twice a year. It was an economical boom to Whirlpool and it showed goodwill on Whirlpool's behalf. As part of that tradition, the daimyo of Whirlpool has to grant an audience to anyone who comes before him. Usually it's just a minor petition for favors and such. This is an SS-class mission of the utmost importance, Tsunade continued. Go to Whirlpool country, get a hold of that Gaki and tell him of our situation. Tell him that if he sides with Konoha, then the village will recognize him as the legitimate heir to Minato Namikaze, and we will recognize Whirlpool and Neo Uzushiogakure. I don't care if we have to pay him reparations for the abuse he suffered. I want him on our side. You're not really going to do what you promised, are you? Choji asked. Of course not, Tsunade replied flatly. I'm merely ensuring Konoha's survival. And Tsunade wonder why people avoid us like the plague, Ino thought darkly, but kept silent. Aside from favoring potential traitors over heroes, Konoha had developed a reputation for stabbing their clients in the back. It was a major reason why they were unable to gain any trading alliances with the neighboring villages and countries. You four will leave within the hour, Tsunade ordered. Head for Azura and get Whirlpool on our side. Once Hanzo and Aim is dealt with, I will personally deal with Naruto. Ino shook her head. The conflict in Wave had left her even more bitter. When Jiraiya lost the backing of the Toads, she too lost the support of the Slugs, who also threatened to destroy Konoha should she try and summon them again. What made Tsunade see red was that the Slug contract was passed on to Gaara's wife, who had studied under Hinata. Matsuri would go on to build a medic ninja program in Suna following Neo Uzu's example. But it was Naruto stripping the legendary Sannin of their title was the final straw. Orochimaru tried to attack him from behind, only to lose his head as a result. Shikamaru sighed and accepted the mission scroll. He had talked with his teammates and even he knew that Konoha was in its last days. But as long as he wore the Hitai of the leaf, he will do his duty. Ino and Choji both felt the same way. It was after their parents had confessed their role in the conspiracy to rob Naruto of his inheritance and legacy that up until that fateful mission to rescue the Fire Lord that their relationships with their parents have been strained. They disliked Naruto for being the Jinchuriki, but they were not so crazy about having a virtual traitor as Hokage and a second traitor return to Konoha with so much as a slap on a wrist, despite having killed Hiruzen Sarutobi. Once the Ino Shika Cho trio and Tenten were gone, Jiraiya turned to Tsunade. You think Naruto will go for helping us? We're not exactly his two favorite people in the world, you know. The Gaki will help us, Tsunade replied firmly. He would die for this village, protected with his dying breath. In the coming days, she would find out how wrong she was. For the 4 ninja assigned to the task, it would be the last time they would see Tsunade alive again. Neo Uzushiogakure, Whirlpool Country, 1 day later. Training Ground Number 12. Naruto had kept close tabs on the conflict on the mainland. His network of informants and spies proved to be even more capable and more efficient than Jiraiya's own spy network. He even knew the perverted bastard's informants by name. The most recent news he shared with Hinata concerning Konoha showed its weakness. Sasuke Uchiha was dead. Sakura Haruno was dead. Like Hinata, Naruto was the sole surviving member of Cell 7. Sasuke had the dubious honor of being the Hokage with the shortest term in history. Even more shorter than his father's reign. A Megakure knew where and how to strike, and used the minor villages to its advantage, having them strike at Konoha, depleting its forces, even further. Naruto approved. With the annual taijutsu tournament approaching, he was expecting less people to show due to the conflict. The Whirlpool Taijutsu tournament was held in the town of North Azura on the northern island. The island was also known as a popular vacation hotspot for ninja and civilian alike. Even a had settled there after stepping down as Raikage, allowing Yugito Ni to assume the position of Raikage. The Taijutsu tournament was Naruto's brainchild, and it brought the best of the best from the shinobi nations. For 1 week, North Whirlpool was a literal battleground as ninja fought each other. For 1 week, rivalries and hatred was put aside as ninjas fought for a hefty prize and the title of champion. No bloodlines, no weapons, no jutsu. Your hands and feet were the weapons. Naruto himself fought in the tournament, only because he was challenged by Sasuke Uchiha, who had competed in the tournament in its inaugural year. The Whirlpool of Daimyo took pleasure in stomping the Uchiha prince down. It also sent out the message that the Whirlpool Daimyo was someone that should not be taken lightly in the field of combat. At the moment, the Daimyo of Whirlpool was sparring with his former pupils, while Yahiko, Konan and Hinata watched. When Naruto reformed Whirlpool, Maru, formerly Konohamaru, Sarutobi, Moegi and Udon were Suna Chunin, having left Konoha with Gaara in the aftermath of the Uchiha retrieval mission. Not even Asuma threatening to disown Maru should he leave did not change his mind. Asuma followed through with his threat, in which Maru responded that Asuma was dead to him, and that he was a disgrace to the memory of the Sandaime. When word came to Team Misfits that their boss was now the Daimyo of Whirlpool, they approached Gaara and asked to resign in order to emigrate to Whirlpool. Gaara, knowing of Naruto's friendship with the younger ninja, allowed them to leave with his blessings. Upon arriving in Whirlpool, they were the first of many Chunin-level ninja to arrive, Naruto opening citizenship to bloodline refugees, nomad, civilian and samurai alike. Naruto took the 3 under his wing. In the 8 years that followed, Maru, Moegi and Udon still called themselves Team Misfits, but they were one of the best teams Neo Uzu had to offer. Like his grandfather, Maru was an expert in ninjutsu. Combine that with the Monkey King summon, and people saw the young Sarutobi as the second coming of the professor. Moegi turned out to be skilled in medic ninjutsu, and she learned under Hinata and Katami. Udon was the tactician of the trio, His keen mind combined with his skills in taijutsu made him a fan favorite in the taijutsu tournaments. Maru had married a local girl from Wave Country who worked in the Pakara merchant house, and was a father himself. His sons were enrolled in the Neo Uzu Academy. Moegi and Udon both married each other and settled in New Uzu as well. Their child was also in the Shinobi Academy. Dressed in his combat attire, i.e., black Konoha-style flak vest, cargo pants and sandals, and armed with his okatana, Naruto twisted through the misfits' attacks, occasionally smacking them with his sheathed sword. It wasn't painful, but it definitely stung. Smack, smack. A blow to Maru's shin, causing him to yelp, followed by a smack to the head. Dead. Naruto deadpanned. Smack. A blow to Moegi's side. Had Naruto impaled her, she would have bled to death. Dead. Smack. The older man swept Udon off his feet, followed by a double tap to the chest and head. Very dead. Naruto finished. Even acting as one, the misfits could not gain the upper hand on the daimyo. They were capable of giving him a run for his money, but Naruto was the superior ninja. We almost had you that time, boss, Maru complained. One more time. Naruto chuckled. Maybe next time, Sarutobi. Before Maru could object, a Uzu Anbu appeared via Shunshin, along with a second person. Lord Daimyo, you have a visitor, the Junin reported. Naruto saw that it was Rashojin Hanzo. Frowning slightly, he wondered why he was here when he should be in Fire Country. Then it hit him. He forgot that Hanzo also knew the Shadow Clone's jutsu. He must have sent this copy to Neo Uzu to get his take on the invasion. Hanzo bowed respectfully to Naruto. Sure, Hanzo was older, but Naruto was higher on the status ladder than he was. Unlike the salamander, Hanzo knew where to give honor and respect when it was due. Fortunately for Naruto, he was one of the few people that Hanzo genuinely respected. But Hanzo knew of Naruto's connections to Konoha. If Naruto decided to run interference, then his plans of raising Konoha to the ground would be in vain. Lord Daimyo, Hanzo greeted. Rashojin Hanzo, Naruto replied, bowing back. I've heard that you've been busy. That I have. I wish to have a word with you, Lord Daimyo. Naruto turned and walked down the path leading to the village. Hanzo fell in step beside him, while Team Misfits and the Uzu Anbu tagged baying at a respectable pace. So you know about my occupation of the fire capital, Hanzo began. Do you know I plan on invading Konoha and razing it to the ground? I've heard. Iwagakure wants to get in on the action, but has concerns facing you and Neo Uzu should you fight on Konoha's behalf. If I decided to join in and help defend Konoha, then that would violate the non-aggression pact I made with Iwa and Earth Country, Naruto replied. The last thing I want or need is to be remembered for starting a shinobi war. Hanzo nodded in understanding. But you still haven't answered my question. I'm not interfering in your quarrel, Naruto replied. If I was younger, if I still wore the symbol of the leaf, then yeah. But after their betrayal and their repeated attempts to kill me, my wife and their antics concerning my children, I could have easily destroyed them myself by allowing the Nine Tails to go to town. But I didn't. I decided to spare them, to let them know that the dead last could just as easily crush them in ways that Orochimaru and Madara could dream of. You spared them so that they could live with the disgrace, Hanzo surmised. He knew that Naruto was no coward. He knew how to pick his battles, and where and how to strike for maximum damage, which was how he was able to destroy the Akatsuki. Hanzo approved. Not bad. Most ninja tend to overlook battle tactics. I am honestly impressed, Daimyo Namikaze. Glad to see that your years as daimyo has not dulled your senses. Konoha is alone. Fire Country is alone. I also have ninja in the surrounding countries on assignment, Naruto said. Hanzo nodded in understanding. As long as they do not attack my ninja, I will show the same courtesy. And your allies. They will not interfere, and at the same time, will not fight on your behalf, Naruto replied. I've already discussed this with the others. I will not aid Konoha in any shape, form of fashion. I will not fight them, as I have nothing else to prove to them, but I will not save them either. Hanzo smiled. That was the answer that he was looking for. Naruto had just confirmed to him that he was more than willing to send Konoha to a hell of their own making. I thank you for your time, Lord Daimyo. I will take my leave, Hanzo said, bowing, to which Naruto responded with a nod of his head. The shadow clone then dispersed. The Fire Capital, Fire Daimyo's residence. The memories of the shadow clone were transferred to the real Rashojin Hanzo, who was currently in talks with the Tsuchikage, Kuretsuchi. The leader of Iowa had her concerns when an AIM envoy came to her with a most interesting offer, the destruction of Konohagakure no Sato. Kuretsuchi noticed Hanzo pausing in mid-speech, before a smile spread across his face. Good news from Neo Uzu? She asked. Very. Hanzo replied. Daimyo Namikaze made it clear that he nor his allies will not aid Konoha. The Leaf's fate is sealed. So, about our alliance? Kuretsuchi nodded. You have the full support of Iwagakure no Sato. When do you plan on attacking Konoha? 3 weeks. That drunk of a Hokage actually think that Daimyo Namikaze will help them. As they sit, praying and hoping that their former Jinchuriki will help them, we will strike. I've heard that they've sent 4 of their ninja to Neo Uzu to ask for help. By the time they return to Konoha, they will find it burned to the ground. Kuretsuchi nodded. One more thing. What's your take on Daimyo Namikaze? Hanzo thought about it for a moment. I respect him. He's been through so much growing up, being the container to the most powerful of the Biju. It takes a lot of willpower not to unleash hell upon a village that spits on you, yet was willing to defend to his dying day. Any weaker man or woman would have either killed himself or went mad with such a burden. Kuretsuchi could understand. After all, Iowa had 2 Jinchuriki of their own, Roshi and Han. Out of the pair, only Roshi was still alive, as Han was killed by the Akatsuki. Like Roshi found a home in North Whirlpool, spending his life in peace. As long as Roshi did not don the Hittite with the Whirlpool insignia, she left him alone. Follow me, Hanzo said. I have an appointment with the Fire Lord. So, the idea of sending Konoha ninja to Neo Uzu to try and get Daimyo Namikaze on their side was just a ruse, right? Of course. You really think that Konoha would actually succeed in the task that I gave them? The Yondaime's son hate Konoha as much as you do. By the time our forces are in place, they will see that it was all for naught. I promise on the bones of the original Hanzo the Salamander. Konoha will be destroyed. By having the Fire Lord sign this scroll, it shows that he was more than willing to throw the village to the wolves in order to save his own life, thus demonizing him even more in the eyes of the public. The past 19 years had not aged the Fire Lord well, nor was he able to appease his counterparts in spring, wind and water. After all, he too was one of the chief conspirators in orchestrating Uzumaki's banishment for a sizable cut of his family's wealth. Too bad Naruto had taken it with him when he left Konoha. His crimes made public, he had lost face with the other daimyos. Even Earth Country and Iron Country called him out on his arrogance in denying the son of the village's hero his legacy. When Whirlpool was reformed under the same boy he had ordered to be killed, he was the only one to denounce him, not recognizing his authority as Whirlpool Daimyo. But since Whirlpool was allied with 3 different countries, invasion would result in Konoha's destruction. And now, here he was, a prisoner inside his palace. AIM Ninja had the capital locked down tight following Konoha's attempt to rescue him several weeks earlier. He was allowed to move within his palace, but was always under heavy guard. His guardian ninja were of no help, either, as they were slain protecting him. His wife had succumbed to a heart attack during the invasion. And to make matters worse, Hanzo forced him to watch as he and his AIM ninja slaughtered the Konoha ninja. He watched as the rescue force, 200 strong, were cut down. He watched as Asuma Sarutobi died while protecting his wife. He watched as Kurenai Sarutobi was pinned to the wall, her body riddled with kunai. Kakashi Hatake, the famed copy ninja, had fallen to Hanzo himself, his neck broken. And Sasuke Uchiha, both eyes were ripped out and crushed under Hanzo's heel. The final indignity was Hanzo snapping the Rokudaim's back like a twig. Only 10 of the Konoha ninja survived and made their retreat, taking the Uchiha with them. Hanzo ordered the remaining bodies to be incinerated. He was inside his study, a single aim guard was his companion. The doors to the study opened and in walked Rashogen Hanzo and Kuretsuchi. General Hanzo. The aim ninja bowed. Hanzo ignored him as he walked towards his prisoner. Pulling up a chair, he sat down in front of the Fire Lord's desk. Ready to talk? The aim warlord asked. The Fire Lord sighed. Giving Danzo the green light to attack him was definitely a bad idea. What do you want? He asked. To discuss the instrument of surrender. We'll see how much your integrity weighs against the lives of yourself and of your family. I know you gave Shimura the order to try and kill me. I also know that you ordered him to kill my great-grandfather, and his supporters. So rather than kill you in retaliation, I'm here to offer terms. These are non-negotiable, and I am merely offering you these out of courtesy. First, you will pay a one-time indemnity to both villages of Rain and Stone. A bribe, you mean? The Fire Daimyo shot back. Call it what you like, but you will pay what you owe, Hanzo replied. Again the Fire Lord had no choice. His life and that of his families was at stake. That and paying off both villages could all but ruin him. Done. Anything else? Yes. The destruction of Konohagakure no Sato. What? Destroy Konoha. It already has been through enough with the loss of their Hokage, who was the last of the Uchiha. And from what you already told me, the majority of their Junin and Chunin were killed in repeated assaults on the village. Destroy Konoha. We were the first of the nations to have a village. Please, spare the village. Hanzo's face was grim. Suit yourself. Without breaking eye contact, he addressed the aim Junin, his voice ice cold. Retrieve the Fire Lord's family, his mistress, children and grandchildren, all of them, and show them the same courtesy as he showed to my family. The Fire Lord's eyes went wide at the realization of Hanzo's order. He was going to execute his entire family. Wait. Hanzo an eyebrow, one hand raised, stopping the aim Junin in his tracks. He had the Fire Lord right where he wanted him. Producing a scroll, he unrolled it and placed it in front of the Fire Lord. The Fire Lord looked at the scroll. It was titled Terms of Surrender. It was already signed and sealed by both Hanzo and Kuretsuchi, but was missing his signature. As you can see, my terms are harsh, but fair, Hanzo said. I have no desire for territory, nor to make Fire Country a protectorate, nor does Iwa or Earth Country. But the terms are clear. Fire Country will no longer have a shinobi village. In exchange, we will leave you in peace. Konoha will be burned to the ground, its ninja from Chunin to Junin will be slaughtered should they resist. Any ninja who surrender to our forces will have their chakra sealed and sent into exile. Any genin will be taken by Iwa and aim back to their respective villages, their minds will be wiped clean and we will raise them as our own ninja. The civilians will not be harmed. All jutsu will be destroyed. Any clan's wealth that is left behind will be paid as part of the indemnity. Since the Uchiha clan is now extinct, its wealth will be used as part of that indemnity. So what's it going to be? The lives of your family for one village who has dug its own grave. Or I execute your family as you watch, with you being the last to go, and the Rain and Stone will crush Konoha regardless. Make your choice now. With a trembling hand, the Fire Lord reached for his pen. But Hanzo stopped him. Hanzo chided. Before the Fire Lord could say anything, Hanzo grabbed his hand and jammed the pen into his palm, causing the old man to yelp out in pain. Now you may sign, Hanzo said. With a second cry of pain, the Fire Lord yanked out the pen and signed the scroll in his own blood. The scroll reacted to the signature, making it binding as the Fire Lord applied his Henko seal onto the document, making it legal. With that action, The Fire Lord had officially sealed Konoha's fate.